began with the lights. Every bulb in Asheville flickered at 2:13 a.m., not randomly, but all at once. They pulsed in sequence, like heartbeats, east to west, from the river to the ridge. Then they went out, total black, and in that darkness, the taken returned. Sheriff Dudley, long presumed missing, walked barefoot into the town square. His body was bloated and wrong, like he'd been soaking in something thick and unnatural. His eyes were wide open, but clouded and milky. He didn't speak. He just stared at the war memorial and began to sob blood. Eleanor Briggs, missing since '82, reappeared on the steps of the old library. Her dress was burned to her skin. Her lips were sewn shut with thorns, but she hummed the national anthem, slow and off-key, until her jaw snapped in half with a sound like a splintering bone. One by one they emerged, from basements, closets, from the woods. Dozens of them, each of them once a part of Asheville, each now hollow. And all of them wore the same expression, as if there were only half in their bodies, the other half somewhere else, somewhere beneath. Clara Wren ran, after speaking the name Aziel Korith. The house had imploded with sound, not physically, but spiritually. The floors trembled, the mirrors bled. Her mother's corpse sat upright, her eyes burned out, a smile stitched across her face. She could no longer deny it. Her blood was tied to this, the Wren line, the Greaves blood. Her family had been gatekeepers, not protectors, but wardens for a demon that had once ruled this land. And now that seal was broken. Asheville was waking up. She clutched the old journal to her chest as she ran through the woods, towards the only person who might understand, Reverend Jonah Gray. Jonah had fortified the church. The basement was lined with salt, iron nails, pages torn from exorcism texts, and stitched into the stone walls. He sat by candlelight, carving protective sigils into the floor with a silver blade passed down by a monk who had gone blind in Rome. He knew what was coming. Aziel Korith, the skinless root, a creature not of fire or flesh, but of corruption, something that grew in men like rot, like guilt, like memory. When Clara arrived, she was soaked in blood that wasn't hers. She dropped the journal on the altar. "It's happening. They're back." Jonah didn't flinch. "I know," he said. She held out a page, trembling. "This ritual, the one they used to bind him, can we do it again?" Jonah read in silence. His lips moved slower over the ancient script. Then he looked up. "No." "Why not?" He swallowed. "Because it wasn't meant to bind. It was meant to invite. What they did wasn't a sealing. It was a summoning. An offering in exchange for peace. They made Asheville quiet for 200 years by feeding it to something older than sin." Clara's knees buckled. "They sacrificed the town," she whispered. Jonah nodded. "And now it's come to collect." Deputy Nate Carver watched from the roof of the station as Eleanor Briggs tore her own jaw free. He'd seen enough horror to make a priest piss holy water, but this was biblical. He gripped the shotgun tighter. The sky above Ashevale had begun to turn, not stormy, not clouded, just wrong. The stars blinked in patterns they shouldn't. The moon flickered like a dying bulb, and something in the darkness whispered his name over and over. Nathaniel, you still have your eyes. He'd seen that phrase now, eyes or doors, written across 6 different missing persons cases. He didn't know what it meant. Until he looked down from the roof. A child was standing in the middle of Main Street, barefoot, head tilted. It was Daniel Kemp, missing for 12 years. He smiled at Nate. When his eyes opened, dozens more stared out from the wides. Human eyes, blinking in unison from inside his sockets. Nate fell to his knees and screamed. Back at the church, Clara flipped through the journal again. She found a passage near the end, one written in a different hand, sloppier and desperate. There is a counter right. It requires the 5th, a descendant of the Greaves line. But the cost is everything. She looked up at Jonah, who had gone pale. You're the 5th, he said. Your blood's the last lock. And behind them, the bell of the church began to ring. Not by hand, but on its own, tolling 12 times in a town where no one was counting hours anymore. Each chime echoed through Ashevale like a heartbeat, and beneath the town, Aziel Corith laughed. The church bell stopped. Its final toll rolled through Ashevale like a quake through bone. Windows cracked. Street lamps burst. Dogs howled, then fell silent. Somewhere in the distance, someone screamed. High, wet, and brief. Then quiet. Too quiet. Clara sat on the altar steps with the journal in her lap, hands shaking. She was the 5th. Not just any bloodline. The last living descendant of the original 5 families who had forged the pact beneath the sycamore. The pact that birthed a false peace, that gave Ashevale 2 centuries of calm in exchange for something darker than hell. Silence paid in souls, memory, blood. Her mother had known. They all had. Why me, Clara asked, not to anyone in the room, but to the dark above the rafters, the dust-swallowed crucifix, the cracked, stained glass. Jonah closed the journal and lit a candle, its flame immediately turning black. Because you were never meant to be spared, he said softly. You were meant to be kept, hidden, until the next hollowing. The counter right can't be done without a 5th. Clara looked at him. And what exactly is the counter right? He hesitated. Then, a sacrifice. Voluntary. You must descend to the hollow, enter the sycamore, offer what the hollowed ones never did. A soul without corruption. A soul not taken, not bartered. She laughed bitterly. That's not me. Not yet, Jonah said. But it will be, if you choose. Outside, the taken had gathered in rows. They stood at the edge of the woods, just past the church fence, silent, watching. The ground beneath them oozed black sap. Their eyes, if they still had eyes, shimmered with something not of this world. One stepped forward, Eleanor Briggs. Her jaw still hung like a broken gate, dangling from sinew, but her voice was perfectly clear. The blood remembers. She raised one hand and pointed at the church. "Bring her to the tree." And every taken repeated in unison, voices distorted and overlapping. "Bring her to the tree." Deputy Nate Carver tore through town in his cruiser, shotgun across the dash, trying to stay ahead of the rot spreading from the forest edge. The pavement itself was warping, cracking open in webbed lines that oozed steam and spores. Houses trembled. Streetlights flickered in Morse code, then exploded. At the center of it all stood Griever's Hollow, the tree. Split now, the sycamore's trunk gaped like a wound, not burned, not cut, peeled as if the bark were skin. The opening pulsed. Something breathed within. Nate slammed the brakes just before the edge. He got out, walking slowly toward the tree, gun raised. But even he knew it wouldn't matter. The ground beneath him hummed. Something ancient was watching. Back in the church, Clara wept into her palms. "What if I'm not enough?" Jonah stood. "You're the only one left who is enough. Everyone else gave themselves to the hollow. You've resisted it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a dagger. The blade was old, iron, and etched with 5 sigils, one now glowing faintly with a red light. "You'll need this to open the gate." Claire stared. "You said it was a ritual, not a murder." He nodded. "It is, but the gate doesn't open unless you are willing to bleed." They left the church together. Outside, the taken parted as they walked, not fighting, not attacking, just watching, like witnesses to a trial or mourners at a funeral. Jonah handed her the blade. "I'll go with you as far as I can," he said. Clara whispered. "And then?" He didn't answer. Griever's Hollow breathed. The sycamore pulsed like a throat, and the earth reeked of rot, vinegar, and something worse. Something sweet, a smell that lured you in while tearing your soul apart. Clara stepped forward. The bark parted. Inside, a tunnel led down, lit by roots that pulsed with red dim light. Whispers crawled along the walls, speaking her name in hundreds of languages. She looked back at Jonah. He was crying. "This is the price," he said. "The town, your name, all memory. You'll be the seal, the lock, the price." Clara stepped inside. Behind her, the bark closed. And above, in the hollow sky, the taken began to scream. Thank you guys for your patience and for joining me of part 2 of this story here on Kody's Creepies. Make sure to join me next week for the final part and for many more creepypastas to come. Please like the video, subscribe, and share it around so we can help this channel grow as well. I love and appreciate you all, and I'll continue to see you here and on Mystery Archives. Much love, and take care. I'll see you next time.